I'm going to talk in this video about fatigue management. Fatigue can be a symptom of so many different conditions, health conditions, and can actually be incredibly debilitating. When we're talking about fatigue, we're not just talking about physical fatigue, but we're also talking about cognitive mental fatigue, both of which can have quite a significant impact on day-to-day activities. By cognitive fatigue, we're thinking about brain fog. People are experiencing difficulties with concentration, with memory, with processing information, word retrieval, all of which can be significantly impacting on those day-to-day activities. I think it's worth noting here as well that fatigue is different from normal tiredness. As we've said, it can be incredibly debilitating and quite distressing when people are experiencing it, and a difficult thing to explain to others when you are experiencing fatigue. So I'm going to run through some strategies that we use in a range of health conditions for people who are struggling with their energy levels, and I hope that you'll find them useful today when you're implementing some of these energy management strategies yourself. So we quite often use the analogy of a battery, and because of this post-COVID situation, the battery is significantly smaller than it was previously. So we're finding that it's flattening quite quickly, and unfortunately the condition of it is not so great right now. So it's taking a while to recharge. As part of this condition and response to this low energy battery, we often find people are experiencing what we call the boom and bust pattern of activity cycling. So the fatigue can be quite varying. On some days you may find you have a little bit more energy in that battery. On other days it can feel that it's significantly less. But on those good days, on those better days, people often find that they tend to do more as a result of having more energy. Unfortunately, there isn't the energy in that battery to deal with that or to cope with that, and people can end up crashing, experiencing a relapse, which can take several days to recover. Unfortunately, over time, this pattern can result in less activity and energy overall. It can perpetuate the fatigue. So what we're aiming for in energy management is to try and stabilise our activity levels, so not to exceed things too much on a good day and to manage those not so good days. And then hopefully over time, as the graph suggests, we can gradually increase our energy levels and improve our functioning. I think what's important to say is that recovery is not going to be a smooth line. It can take a few ups and downs along the way, but hopefully the trajectory is one of improvement. So in terms of managing your energy battery, there's a few strategies and approaches that we can implement to try and support this. So we use something called the 3Ps approach: prioritising, planning and pacing. When we think of the first P, prioritising, we're going to have to understand that actually because that energy battery is so much smaller, we're going to have to use the energy that we've got in that battery wisely and not waste any energy unnecessarily. So to do this, sometimes it can be quite helpful to ask the questions on the slide, thinking about what has to be done. Is there anything that can wait until later? Is there anything that can be done on another day, or even scrubbed off the list totally? As part of that, it may be worth looking at, is there things that other people can help you with, or you can outsource so that people are using their energy battery rather than yours? For example, maybe switching to online shopping, having groceries delivered, or getting help in the house or in the garden. As part of these priorities, it's also worth remembering those pleasurable, joyful activities and making sure that they form part of the balance of your day-to-day activities, because we know that those pleasurable activities can actually give the battery a little bit of a boost. The next P is planning, and this is understanding the different energy requirements for the different activities that you do. So everything that you do during the day will require different amounts of energy from that battery. Some things will take a high amount of energy, some things a medium amount, some things a low amount, and that's going to be quite unique to you. So it's considering and thinking about the energy expenditure that you have at the moment. What are those high, medium and low energy requirements, both physical and cognitive? And once you understand what those are, then you can plan to spread them across the day and across the week, and building in plenty of time to rest in between. Sometimes people find it helpful to make a plan or a schedule to spread activities across the week, or sometimes just a sense of what those activities are can help with your planning. As part of this planning, you may also find there's different ways of doing things. For example, if you notice that your energy is lower or concentration is harder at certain times of the day, maybe plan to do things at a different time of the day. Or if, for example, you find showering quite demanding, if you have a little bit more energy in the afternoon, evening, maybe showering at that time. So think about the ways that you can do activities and to do them differently to make it easier for you. It's also worth remembering that there may be some simple pieces of equipment that can help you with some of those tasks. So for example, with kitchen tasks, having a stool or a perching stool nearby can help you to sustain some of that meal prep for a little bit longer. The next P is pacing, and the idea behind pacing is that it helps you to have enough energy to complete your activities. So by pacing we mean a careful balance of activities, both cognitive and physical, at the right level with periods of rest. It's often about doing a little something, then having a rest, doing a little something, then having a rest. As part of this, what you might want to do is what we call chunk activities, so break them down into smaller chunks and spread them out throughout the day. So rather than completing a task in one go, which you would have done previously, you might want to break it down into smaller. Give yourself permission to slow down. Going at a different pace than you are used to, what we know is this can help you to conserve some energy. Just as athletes and cyclists use a pacer in a race, it's a similar principle to apply for yourself so that you don't overextend yourself and you're able to get through the day with a little bit more energy in your battery. One of the key things of pacing is to set yourself limits before you start. Be clear on the end point before you begin anything, because when you're in the moment it's very easy to get carried away and not necessarily hear those signals that you are beginning to get tired. So if you're clear on the limit before you start, you can prevent this from happening. Ideally, if you can, as you begin to understand your energy expenditure and requirements, see if you can save a little bit of energy in reserve each day, so you've got a little bit as backup in your bank account or your energy battery. If you're doing something until you're exhausted, it means that you'll need longer to recharge your energy battery. Just as with a mobile phone, if it goes completely blank and flat, you end up with a black screen for ages and it takes a while for you to have enough energy in there for you to do anything. And as we've mentioned, build in timely rest throughout the day. Work out what works for you. Sometimes people set an alarm so that on the hour, every hour, they're taking a 5-minute pause, or they're building in a 20-minute morning rest, a 20-minute after lunch, 20-minute afternoon rest. Work out what would work for you and your schedule and your current energy battery. I think it's worth noting at this point what we mean by rest. And by rest we mean restorative healing rest rather than low-level activity. So sometimes people are considering that sort of sitting down, reading the newspaper or watching television is resting. These are what we would normally class as low-level activities. They're all good to do, an important part of that pacing and that planning, but rest is a notch lower. It's actually hitting the pause button so you can actually recharge that energy battery, and there's very little energy coming out of the battery when you're doing it. As I said, it might be 3 minutes, it might be 5 minutes where you just sit with your chair looking out of the window, noticing what's going on outside. Or you might want to have a go at a breathing exercise or a meditation. Or it could be a longer 20-minute, 30-minute body scan relaxation session. But work out what works for you, and it may be a combination of rests that you want to implement during the day. And then finally, just a note on sleep, because we find that actually people are experiencing significant difficulties with sleep when they are fatigued. And normally that would be our way of charging the battery. So just think about whether there's any of these what we call sleep hygiene techniques that may be helpful just to improve the quality of your sleep right now. We find that it can be helpful to have a regular bedtime and a regular wake-up time so the body knows what's expected of it day in, day out. Avoiding backlit devices at least 1 or 2 hours before going to bed. So screens that have that blue light, emitting that blue light, mobile phones, computers, tablets. We know that unfortunately that can interfere with the quality of sleep, not necessarily preventing people from getting off to sleep, but actually it is interfering with that staying asleep and restoring nature of sleep. Avoiding caffeine before bedtime, at least 4 hours. Earlier if you can, because we know that caffeine has a strong half-life and can be quite stimulating and impact on sleep. Avoiding alcohol or a heavy meal before going to bed can also help just improve the quality of your sleep. Making sure that your room is at a correct temperature, so it's not too hot or too cold. The optimum temperature is around 18 degrees centigrade. Making sure that your room is dark, that can really help with sleep, and quiet. Evicting any loud pets if they're disturbing your sleep, so it helps you to get a better night's sleep. There's been some research into having a warm bath or a hot shower just before bed, and those temperature changes as you move from warm to cold can help to induce sleep. Sometimes it's worth trying that at bedtime. If you find that your mind is very active, having a worry book, perhaps writing down your thoughts or your worries an hour or so before bed so that they're not milling round in your brain as you're trying to get to sleep. There's also a whole range of apps and sleepcasts that you could try to help you get off to sleep or to stay asleep if you're waking up in the middle of the night. So in summary, thinking about that boom and bust, try and avoid the boom and bust by not overdoing things on a good day, managing those better days just as much as you manage those not so good days. Think about the 3Ps approach, where your priorities need to be right now at this stage in your recovery. Plan your activities, spread them out across the day, across the week, and pace them. Build in adequate rests throughout the day. As part of the pacing, chunk those activities, break them down, set the limits, and try to save a little bit in the bottom of that battery, if you can, round about 30%. Optimise your sleep by implementing some of the sleep hygiene strategies we've just talked about, but also think about your diet and hydration, as both fuel and hydration and fluids can help just maintain your energy levels, making sure that you're eating regularly throughout the day and drinking plenty of fluids. And as we said with those priorities, make sure that you plan in those enjoyable activities, because we know that they can help just to restore some balance to your life while you are recovering, but also to give your energy battery a little bit of a boost. We appreciate when you're dealing with debilitating fatigue day in, day out, that it can have a significant impact on you emotionally. So if you feel that you want to talk to someone or need to talk to someone, there is Talking Space Plus available in Oxfordshire, which you can refer yourself to, or if you have a therapist, to talk to your therapist about referral.